In 2021, animal justice forged ahead and made sure animals stayed on the national stage. We filed the first Canadian lawsuit against Ontario's dangerous ag-gag laws that cover up cruelty on farms, helped release footage of sickening abuse on an organic dairy farm, fought to rescue Kiska the orca from the appalling conditions at Marineland, and put animals on the agenda in the federal election. 2021 was the year we began to turn the tide against dangerous ag-gag laws. Thanks to your support, we filed a groundbreaking lawsuit against Ontario's ag-gag law, which makes it illegal to expose abuse and neglect that is common at factory farms and slaughterhouses.
We believe that ag-gag laws violate people's freedom of expression rights guaranteed under the Constitution. And that's why we filed a lawsuit challenging Ontario's ag-gag laws.
We fought against dangerous ag-gag bills in other provinces as well, including Manitoba.
And we're concerned about this bill because, as you've already heard tonight, it is an example of an ag-gag law. It will make it harder to document and expose the suffering of animals in transport.
One of the only ways for the public to see the conditions in which animals are kept at farms in Manitoba is by the release of footage by employee whistleblowers.
And thanks to the efforts of our steadfast supporters, we defeated a terrifying federal ag-gag law that could have imposed massive fines on people who expose suffering on farms.
The brief that we received from Animal Justice on page 4, they went into a lot of detail about how most of the risks to biosecurity have come from farm workers or from transports.
In 2021, we kept the spotlight on animal suffering at factory farms. We released footage shot by an anonymous source exposing shocking abuse at an organic dairy farm in Abbotsford, BC.
A dairy farm in BC being investigated for alleged animal cruelty is once again in the spotlight after video obtained by CTV News exposed horrible conditions for the animals.
The video footage prompted action. The farm's license was suspended, and authorities plan to recommend animal cruelty charges.
This farm needs to be held to account for a pattern of abuse.
The sickening cruelty also sparked calls for stronger legal protections for farmed animals, including mandatory video surveillance on farms. In 2021, we worked to help the animals still held captive at Marineland. After Animal Justice filed a legal complaint with police, Marineland is now facing a precedent-setting criminal charge over its dolphin and whale shows.
Niagara Regional Police have charged the tourist park with one count of using dolphins and whales for entertainment purposes. That contravenes a 2019 law forbidding the performance of cetaceans.
But we didn't stop there. Our legal complaint about Kiska the orca has authorities investigating Marineland, and we'll keep pushing to get Kiska released to a whale sanctuary.
Well, there are renewed calls to release Marineland's orca after a new video went viral of the whale in isolation.
Animal Justice has just filed an enforcement complaint with the provincial authorities, asking them to investigate whether Marineland is in fact breaking the law by keeping her in these conditions.
In this election year, we made sure animals were a priority in federal politics. We co-hosted Canada's first ever election debate about animal issues.
Animal protection has emerged as an election issue for the first time in Canadian history.
And for the first time, all major parties made animals part of their election platforms. At Animal Justice, we endorsed animal-friendly candidates through our political wing, Voters for Animals. Dozens of them were elected, promising to champion animal issues in the new parliament. In 2021, we fought animal cruelty in all its forms. We helped set an important precedent at the Alberta Court of Appeal, where the court recognized that animal cruelty is a crime of violence and should be treated differently than property offenses. We also stood up against the rise of puppy mills and backyard breeders.
During the pandemic, the demand for puppies has skyrocketed. It's all creating room for non-legitimate puppy sellers and puppy mills to draw in unsuspecting buyers.
And they'll make it sound like they're a rescue, make it sound like they're adopting animals, but the reality is they bred those animals.
The absolute best route is to adopt from a shelter or a rescue.
And we pushed for legislative bans on puppy mills.
Offenders can get away with a slap on the wrist for some concerning conduct.
In 2021, we went up against the abusive rodeo industry.
The UCP MLA hopes to wrangle up enough fanfare to make rodeo Alberta's official sport.
But animal rights activists say rodeo isn't something to celebrate.
Rodeo is frankly a very risky sport that causes intense amounts of suffering and regularly causes death. Alberta shouldn't be considering celebrating rodeo as the provincial sport. It should be considering banning this activity.
We stepped up for animals used and brutally discarded in research.
Animal advocates, meanwhile, across the province are calling on Sudbury's Laurentian University to immediately stop the planned euthanization of lab animals.
Mice and rats make amazing pets. They're beautiful, wonderful, curious, smart, and sensitive animals. And I think that they deserve just as much of a chance at a life as a cat or a dog does.
And we celebrated some incredible victories this year. After years of campaigning and activism, outerwear company Canada Goose finally dropped the cruel coyote fur from its jackets for good. And as pressure rose in BC, the provincial government announced a plan to immediately shut down all mink farms.
Mink farming continues to be a health hazard.
We also had a win against McDonald's. After Animal Justice filed a legal complaint, they took down misleading billboards claiming its Quarter Pounder was sustainable, even though meat is a leading cause of climate change. And speaking of the climate crisis, we were a leading voice pointing out the impact of extreme weather events on animals. We exposed the 651,000 heartbreaking deaths on farms in BC's heat dome event last summer, and during the recent tragic floods in BC that saw hundreds of thousands more deaths, we called for a cap on farm sizes and mandatory evacuation plans. Throughout the year, we continued to bring people together to fight for a more compassionate world. We launched the Animal Justice Academy, a first-of-its-kind online training course to empower animal advocates with unprecedented learning, community, and collective action. We hosted our annual Canadian Animal Law Conference for the third year in a row, bringing scholars, lawyers, and advocates from around the world together once again. And we continue to support the next generation of animal lawyers through our student clubs at law schools. And through it all, you stayed by our side. Thank you for being part of the animal justice community in our mission of compassion. We look forward to even bigger victories for the animals in 2022.